my, it has been a wicked week in American life. The week opened with the United States signing on with the dictators around the world, and it closed with that American ambush of the Ukrainian president. It was horrible to watch. And today, on this Sunday morning in the House, we need some good news. We need some encouragement. And I have for us today some profiles encouragement. Profiles encourage, a whole series of things that I think are going right, and a testimony about the spirit of hope in my own life. I made a list of the top 10 things that have gone wrong in American life with the new regime in Washington. Things like firing thousands of employees and rounding up immigrants and denigrating every single day our partners and allies, especially in Canada and Mexico. A lot of us think this is a darkness that's descending upon our nation. It's destabilizing our own moods and our own emotions. But I want to focus today for you and for me on 3 profiles in courage. Reminds me of the little book that John F. Kennedy edited many years ago. I want to remind you and myself of 3 great American heroes over the last couple of weeks. The first one is that Bishop Mary Ann Buddy, small elderly lady who stood in the pulpit at the National Cathedral the day after inauguration and spoke true words of the gospel straight to the powers that be. Have mercy on people, she said, Mr. President. That took courage, and I think it inspired all of us. I suspect it inspired you, and you wanted to say, go, preacher, go. But think about the governor of Maine. Many of us saw that video where all the governors were having a dinner in the White House, and the president was rambling on about this or that, and then he turned to the governor and said, is the governor of Maine here? Her name is Janet Mills, and she held up her hand, and he started a back and forth with her and started to rebuke her and demean her and denigrate her. And she said, we'll see you in court, Mr. President. We're going to follow all of the state and federal laws. It was a bold, courageous, and yet very simple and polite pushback to the bully-in-chief in the White House. I commend her for it. And another profile in courage this last Friday afternoon. President Zelensky, who we've all come to admire greatly, the whole world admires him. There he was in the Oval Office with the president and the vice president, the secretary of state, other dignitaries, all the media, including the state media of Russia. And what is now apparent, in a planned ambush, they started to denigrate the visiting head of state. I was so embarrassed. I was outraged. I was ashamed of our leaders. And I think this is the way people around the world have felt about it. The president of Ukraine held his own, maintained his composure, spoke with dignity and strength right back to the president. It was a profile in courage if I've ever seen one. I want to say to you that these 3 individuals are just one sign of hope in a world or a country or a global situation that has all of us confused. How many of you participated in the boycott on Friday this week? I did. I had somebody call me wanting to go somewhere, but I said, no, from morning till night, I'm not going to spend a penny. And I didn't. I hope you did too, and I look forward to more boycotts. There's a boycott of Target coming up this week and throughout the month of March. I've given up shopping at Walmart and Target. I hope you have as well. Now, I'm on TikTok. Are you on TikTok? I think it's the best of all the social media platforms. Don't pay attention to all the stuff about shutting it down. They're not going to shut it down. There's too much money, too many taxes that are generated by the sales on TikTok. I try to post every day, and I would invite you to be on TikTok and follow me on TikTok. But I can tell you this, there is a wave of outrage being expressed at the grassroots level by people on TikTok. People who are organizing all around the country, mobilizing all around the country. Another sign of hope is what has happened in the free world. Not only has almost every head of state in the free world around the globe issued a statement in support of Ukraine after our own leaders spoke so harshly to them. Other leaders around the world, they've taken a different tactic. They've spoken in a winsome and positive way. They are determined to maintain the power and the influence of the free world. And they're already saying, with America abandoning their leadership of the free world, we need to look for new leadership. Now, this embarrasses me. I'm sure it embarrasses many of you. But this is a good sign of hope around the world. And then I read that the Marine refueling bases in Norway have announced that they will no longer refuel any of the American ships. I think you're going to see this kind of boycott spread all over the world. Already, Canada has said we're shutting off our energy contracts with the United States and we're going to do business with China. The world is not going to take lightly this decision by our leaders, not the American people, but the president and his cabinet, to abandon our history and to side with the dictators. Then I want to show again my book, Living with Hope. I published it 1.5 years ago after preaching through Paul's letter in the New Testament to the Philippians. It is a small letter, 4 chapters, full of hope, full of joy, full of encouragement that Paul wrote while he was in prison. But I want to read for you the opening page or paragraph of this book. Kentucky novelist Silas House, who's now the poet laureate of Kentucky, has written a disturbing depiction of one possible future of our planet. The novel Lark Ascending describes the journey of a young man, Lark, a dog, Seamus, and a woman, Helen, as they walk across Ireland, seeking safety from the violence and danger of a collapsed civilization. It is a dystopian view, that is, as opposed to a utopian view of our future. Global warming has fueled fires around the world. What House calls these fundies have taken over America. We might know these as Christian nationalists. Dissent is suppressed by authoritarian governments. Freedom is gone. Flight is the only option for those who do not abide by the religious and political values of the new overlords. Their journey is an arduous one, but it leads them to the one-time Benedictine community that has survived the brutality and maintained the practices of hospitality and compassion. Much of our common life today tends in the direction of this depressing story. All around us there is trouble. Into this rising tide of bad news, we gather each week to sing for joy and live with hope. I'll send this to you for a donation to the Meeting House. You can go to themeetinghouse.net, support, and there's an address where you can send your donation. You can give online, or you can buy it on Amazon, either one. But I want to suggest to you that all of these are signs of hope. Don't give up. Be hopeful, be strong, be courageous, be steadfast in your own convictions, be sure in your own public announcements. I want to begin today by responding to several things that people have said to me or written to me this week. I want to start by the phone call I had with my brother. He lives in Illinois, and he said, "Why do I watch the show every week?" Today he is in Thailand, and he has promised to watch it from Thailand. Last week, we had somebody watching from Scotland, and today in Thailand. He wrote me, he said, "Dwight, you need to be stronger in what you say." I'm trying to do that. But his call reminded me of this, and I want to share this with you. I track as much as I can where our listening audience is. It encourages me, and I think it should encourage you. These are the states in which we have regular listeners. Now, I'm going to read off this list. If I have missed your state, if you're listening from a state that's not listed here, I want you to text me or post there on Facebook. Michigan, Julie, how are you? Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York. Karen, good to see you. New Hampshire, and Oregon, Washington, Alabama, Virginia, Maryland, New York, I've already said New York. New Hampshire, I've already said New Hampshire. New Jersey, I've already said New Jersey. 20 or 21 states. Did I count right? There are some states I wish we had a listener, like Arizona and Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Ohio. If you're from any of these states, let me know. From North Carolina, I got this question from one of our regular listeners. Dan was one of my best friends in high school many years ago in Western Kentucky. And he wrote this: "Are we in the end times? Are we in the end times?" What a question. It's not an unusual question. It's a very common question, not only in our time, but throughout history, as things have become troubled and shaking and insecure and dangerous. People always think about, are these signs of disaster? Are these a dystopian sign of the end of all things? Jesus had to address these, as you know, Dan. And I'm going to talk about this, not today, but a little bit later in our red letter lesson. How Jesus integrated some comments about the end of the world, or the end of the age, as he said it, with reflections on the political and social drama that was going on in Israel, in Jerusalem, in the first century. We will talk about that later. I do want to encourage you to write your comments and post on Facebook, call me, text me. I want to, there are two more responses that I want to respond to, and I don't know whether these came from somebody who was watching the show or somebody who was reading my commentary. My commentary this week, which is on the website at themeetinghouse.net, I sent out in my newsletter. I hope all of you are subscribing to the newsletter. I think it has been the most read column I have ever written. And it's a column about the hope that we have in pushing back the darkness that's coming out of Washington, D.C. And I think people resonated to it because it was a hopeful thing. I want to talk to you about a comment I got from Austin, Texas. This is from a stranger. I did not know who this person was. He read my column and wrote me about it. I wrote him, and he wrote me back and said, I have been attending a conference in Austin, Texas, a public debate on this question. Does the West, capital W, all of the free West, Europe and North America, does the West need a religious revival? Does the West need a religious revival? And one of the persons who was there arguing the case, yes, we need it, is a prominent columnist for the New York Times by the name of Ross Douthat. Ross Douthat. He used to write for the Atlantic, one of the best repositories of great commentary on a daily basis. But I've never met Ross. I hope to meet him sometime. But I am reading his book, Believe. It just came out last week. I'm reading it. I will have a review of it in my newsletter this week, and I will post that on my website. The subtitle, Why Everyone Should Be Religious. Not why everyone should be Christian or Jewish or monotheistic. That's not his point. Now, I've read 2 chapters. It's a very dense book. It's not easy to read. I think his audience is going to be very thin. It doesn't have the winsomeness of something like Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. But I'll have a full review of it later this week. And of course, my feeling is, yes, we need a revival, and here's why. The religion that has helped overtake our national leadership, what we call MAGA religion or Christian nationalism, has a great emptiness right in the middle of it. The place where Jesus needs to be is empty. I've been researching this now for several years, reading the books and listening to the speeches that these MAGA religionists, these Christian nationalists, write and the speeches that they give. They rarely mention Jesus. The reason is because their version of national life, their version of Christian life, is not rooted in the life and teaching of Jesus of Nazareth, which is one of the reasons that what I'm doing Sunday morning, I've taken my red letter Jesus, my red letter Bible, and I'm giving commentary week by week just on what Jesus said, what Jesus did, what Jesus calls us to do. I call it the red letter revival. This is what we need. We need a resurgence of Jesus. Not necessarily the Jesus who's going to come in glory at the end of the age. I think we as Christians believe that in some sense, whatever that means. We need a resurgence of what it means to follow Jesus today and tomorrow. Do you remember last week in our red letter lesson, I reiterated what I had talked about the week before. This parable, the story that Jesus told about the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man had plenty to eat, but he did not share it with the poor man, Lazarus. They both died. The poor man went to a place of beatitude. The rich man went to a place of torment. And the man in the torment tried to talk to Abraham in heaven. The point I tried to make last week was this. In this story, you can either emphasize the speculation about the life that is to come, what life in paradise will look like, what life in judgment will feel like. You can emphasize that. Or you can emphasize what Jesus called us to do in this life, and that was the purpose of the story. It makes a difference what you emphasize, that Jesus called us to be generous and compassionate, kind, to share what we have with those in need. Now, this is what I think we need in America. We need a revival of red letter religion. As a matter of fact, I hope and am planning and am preparing to take my studies out of this Sunday in the house, these red letter lessons, and fashion them into a book. My tentative title for the book is Red Letter Jesus and the Renewal of America. When somebody asks the question, like they did down in Austin, Texas, do we need a revival? Yes, but not of the judgmental sort, not of the kind that where we condemn people and exclude people and judge people and turn people away and ignore people. We need a revival of Jesus religion, red letter religion. I've even got the first sentence of my book in my head. Tell me what you think about this. The religious right on one side, the secular left on the other side. In the middle is a wide open space. There we find Jesus. And there is where I want to be. That may be my opening line of the red letter Jesus. I'm going to emphasize the Lord's Prayer, which is my red letter lesson today. And this is what I want to say about these very familiar words. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others who have trespassed against us. Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. I recite that for you and call you to pray the prayer, to live the prayer, to live in surrender, to live in adoration, to live in trust that God will supply our needs, to live in forgiveness, giving and receiving reconciliation, to live avoiding temptation and resisting evil, and to live in the celebration of God's good future. This is what it means to live the Lord's Prayer. But here's something else it means. We need to be the agent of the prayer, that is, helping to answer the prayer that other people are praying. Other people are praying that very prayer. Often we can be the agent of God in answering their prayer, in helping to establish God's will on earth, in supplying their daily bread, their daily shelter, their daily protection, in forgiving them and confessing our own sins, in standing with them to resist the evils that are in the world. This is what I mean by being God's agent, inspired by the prayer of Jesus. We need to be an answering agent, helping people, feeding people. Now, one last thing. From Alabama, a longtime friend of mine, Birmingham, Alabama, wrote me this week and sent a column by the great American humorist Garrison Keillor. Many of you know who he is. He writes a column 3-4 times a week on Substack. And I have posted this column this morning on my Facebook page. I want you to go read it, because he talks about the power of going to church. But and he attends church somewhere in New York City. He describes about going to church. And I know this morning, 9 o'clock, Sunday in the house is for de-churched people. But he talks about the power last Sunday of his worship service. And right in the middle of it, he said, when I saw the order of worship that we were going to sing, for the communion hymn, the old gospel song, "It Is Well With My Soul." Garrison says, I knew right then I was going to weep all the way through that hymn. You know, sometimes I wish we could just go to church and sing the hymns and kneel to pray and hear the gospel read and walk out with a new resolve to live red-letter religion. It's all the commissions and the committees and the wealth and the power struggles in church that turn us off. But I listened. Right in the middle of this column, they embedded a video of a great choir singing that song, "It Is Well With My Soul." I would play it today, but I'm not going to, because it would be flagged by Facebook and YouTube because it is copyrighted. But I listened to it. The solo parts were by the three tenors, the three Italian tenors. You can imagine the power of it. I want you to go read the column, listen to this video. And I want to testify today how listening to it this week changed the way I felt about this hymn. Now, I've known this hymn for a long time. I learned it growing up. But I always associated it with the evangelical call to be saved, so that as you approach death, you'll know that things are well with your soul, that you're going to go to heaven type thing, that if you're laying on your deathbed, you can think that things are well with your soul and because you're trusting Jesus. Now, all that may be true, but I'll tell you, in our times with all the drama, all the chaos, all the danger, all the destruction around us, I need things to be well with my soul today. I need a spirit of peace and confidence in God, of things of well-being in the midst of the storm, because in the days that are coming, we're going to need a new spirit to rebuild our nation, to rebuild our international alliances. Now, I want to end today by telling you a story of something that happened to me this week. I live in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Right in the middle of Travelers Rest, there is an old railroad, the Swamp Rabbit Railroad. They've turned it into a trail. It's a 23-mile trail. It's the best thing about upstate South Carolina. And most days of the week, I get out on that trail and walk 5 miles. I walk down to Furman University, turn around and walk back. This week, I walked in a different direction. I walked down toward the YMCA. I took my daughter's dog, Stella, on a leash, and we walked down. And as we walked past the houses, I noted again how many trees are still down, not only around the trail, but on this street where I was walking. Large trees uprooted by the storm that came through more than 6 months ago. All over Tennessee, all over North Carolina, all over South Carolina. Still enormous destruction. I read yesterday that Interstate 40, though, is opening up today. 2 lanes, 35 miles an hour. You can go over the mountains to Knoxville and Asheville and back. But on my walk today, this is what I noticed. I noticed how many trees are down in this one man's yard. And as I walked, I noticed that he was trying to clear it up. And I noticed something strange about the way he was stacking the logs. Look at that. Making a choo-choo train. Doing something whimsical, something comical, something to draw the attention, something that is bearing witness to the spirit of renewal and hope, happiness, and even humor in his own spirit. I thought, what a great testimony. I do not know the man. I waved at him as I walked by. He was out with his dog. But that simple act of taking all of the downed trees, trying to clean things up, and sending a signal reminding us not only of the Swamp Rabbit Trail, but of the human spirit that is resilient and hopeful. Let's live with hope this week. Send me a message. Let me know you're watching. Post on Facebook. Subscribe, share. Go to TikTok. Watch the stuff there. Let's have a good week, regardless of what other people are doing. Let's have a red letter revival in our spirits, in our homes, in our communities, in our churches, in our nations. God bless you. I'm Dwight Moody. This has been Sunday in the House. See you next week.